Welcome to Lesson 109 of Saxon Math, Course 2. In this lesson, we're going to talk about equations with exponents. We're going to solve equations that have variables with an exponent of 2. Okay, so in the equations that we solved so far this year, all of our exponents were 2 to 1. There was only one exponent. You didn't see it because we normally don't write the 1 above it, so normally when you see 3x, it's just 3x, but really it's 3x to the first power, but we don't show that, so we just write 3x. Now we're going to consider when it's squared, 3x squared, and we're going to solve those, and we do it exactly the same way that we've done in the past. So you look here, we've got our equation, and then we minus 1 on both sides, so we get 3x squared equals 27. Then we divide by 3 to get rid of the 3 on each side, so now we're left with x squared equals 9, and then we take and square both of those and break them down, and so x equals 3 and negative 3. And we have two answers, of course, because they work out the same way. Both will plug them in, they both will give us the answer that we want. So 3x squared plus 1 equals 28. In that case, x equals 3 or negative 3. And that's what we're going to learn in this lesson. So let's try it on this one here. First thing, what's the first thing we want to do is we want to write this down on our paper so we show our work. Minus 1 equals 47. Okay, the first thing we do, we've got 3x squared minus 1. Well, what's the opposite of minus 1 or subtracting 1? It's adding 1, so we want to add 1 to each side. So now we get 3x squared equals 48. Okay, now we want to divide by 3 to get rid of this, so we end up with x squared equals 16. And then square both of those, they end up with x equals 4 and negative 4. Okay? All right, got the idea? Let's see if you can do it. All right? It's the same thing, just they've added one more step in there. See if you can solve 2x squared equals 10. I'll give you a hint. This one's got a little bit of a twist at the end. You have to remember something from a prior lesson to get the answer of this one. Go ahead, pause the video and see if you can do it, and then restart it, and I'll work it with you. Okay, let's do it. 2x squared equals 10. All right, these 2 and the x squared are being multiplied, so we got to do the opposite, which is divide by 2. So we divide by 2. That goes away, so we end up with x squared equals 5. Now, is 5 a perfect square? It's not. So how do we write that? Do you remember? Hopefully, you remembered that we write that as the square root of 5 and the negative square root of 5. And that is what x equals. That is your answer right here. Okay? All right. And like I say, I mean, you haven't done a lot of this, so it seems a little bit tough right now, but you'll get it. You can do this. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this one together. What does 5 less equal? That means minus 5, correct? Then what number squared? So any number squared. And is equals 20. Or is means equals and 20. So let's put that back together so it's a little easier to solve. Let's go ahead and use a commutative property and do n squared minus 5 equals 20. We're allowed to do that. Now we do plus 5 and plus 5. So now we get n squared equals 25. So n is going, so when we get the square root of both of these, right, we get n equals 5 and negative 5. Of course, the principal square root of 25 would only be 5. I just showed you that to help you understand the leap that we make when we take it down to there. Okay? So n equals 5 and negative 5. Okay, so now let's look at a story problem. Makes it a little bit more complicated. In this example, it says that the area in this figure is a large square that is 4 square units. So, and which is, so this, the great big box out here is 4 square units, and it's twice the size of the smaller box, which this one here, which is going to be 2 square units. So when we write our problem, we know that S times S will give us our area. It says what's the length of each side of the smaller square. So we do that. So that's our S2. We have S2, and it's going to equal 2 because we know that the smaller one is only 2. So we'll use the letter S to stand for the length of each side of the smaller square. So its area is S2, and since the area of the large square is twice the area of the smaller square, the area of the small square is 2. So S2 equals 2. So we know that this here squared is going to equal 2. So this S times this S is going to equal 2. So we solve that problem just like that. So S squared equals 2. So S equals the square root of 2 and the square root of negative 2 units. All right, let's do one last problem. See if you can go ahead and set this one up yourself. Look at it. How would you solve that? We've done a lot of proportions, and that's all this is another proportion, and you should be able to do this. Think about it for a minute. Pause the video, see if you can write an answer down, and then restart it. Okay, so I'm going to cross multiply both directions. So that's going to be 36 equals x squared. All right, now if it helps, I can put x squared equals 36. I can rewrite it like that. So x equals 6 and negative 6, because x squared can be broken down to x times x, and 36 is 6 times 6, or negative 6 times 6. Hopefully you're able to do that. That's your answer. And there's your TIDs. We'll send those to me tonight. Submit them to me so I know you watched the video. Write down any questions you have, and we'll work together as a class on the homework. See you tomorrow in class.